Teachers of Reddit, what's the craziest rumor you've heard about a student that turned out to be true? I heard a rumor from other staff members that an exceptionally bad kid chose to misbehave because he was dying of cancer. It turns out the kid was told in 2nd grade that he had 6 months to live. Despite having missed half the year, the school shuffled him along to the next grade so he could stay with his friends, trying to not ruin his limited time on Earth. However, he continued to miss tons of school for treatment and continued to not die, despite doctors estimating his time remaining to be very short. He continued to be shuffled along in school, until suddenly he found himself in high school and almost illiterate. So he acted out and misbehaved, and when teachers tried to discipline him, he would scream "I'm dying" to try to guilt his way out of punishment. That boy's name? K-Lau. Frick that bald piece of it. I caused my office mate distress by suddenly and violently laughing out loud. Thanks. That's extremely sad on every side. I feel bad for the kid even though he's manifesting it in a negative way. Who wouldn't? Man, if I lived my life thinking I was dying and ended up illiterate on top of it all, I'd be pretty pissed off at the world. Some kid tried to get me to send photos by stating he was dying and I'm selfish for not helping him. Maybe it is true, but it doesn't excuse that, in my opinion. A group of giggling 12-year-olds in my class told me that one of their fellow students wasn't in today as she was pregnant. I phoned home, fully expecting this to be some stupid rumor started by the kids on the school bus that morning. But no, my 12-year-old student was not only pregnant, but had actually given birth in her bedroom during the night. She was a little overweight anyway and wore big baggy jumpers everyone did back then, so nothing unusual there. So no one noticed at all and she told no one, claiming she had no idea. I'd taken them all on a school trip to Alton Towers theme park the day before and she'd been on all the roller coasters and rides. No wonder she gave birth. Was the baby okay? Yes, the baby was healthy and they thought he was full term. Even the hospital got very little information out of her as she just insisted she'd not known she was pregnant. Many of us, and her friends, were unconvinced by this though, as she'd apparently stopped smoking a few months before for no reason. Being a 12-year-old smoker wasn't unheard of at that school sadly, and she'd joked about having sex with someone months before, but then said only joking and denied it all when friends called her a slut. I don't know if the father was ever determined. Social services were already involved in this girl's family. I don't know much of what else happened as I moved to a different school after that year, but I did see her in town a few years later. She had 2 kids with her plus her mother, who basically brought the kids up for her. Whoa, something similar happened to a girl when I was in high school. She had gained some weight when we were 12-13 and was sick and away from school for a while. The weight gain seemed like normal puberty stuff and nobody really thought that much of it. Fast forward to after our graduation and we all find out the niece she always has been looking after / posting photos of is actually her 5-year-old daughter. The father was the kid who lived next door and I guess they didn't really know what was happening. We didn't learn about XED until 15-16. She didn't even realize she was pregnant, just felt sick. The doctors couldn't figure out what was wrong with her until they took her in for an X-ray and realized she was 8 months along. Turns out she was going through custody battles during high school. The father of the kid, our age, even enrolled into our school at some point during the custody battles and she kept it quiet, but still had to see him every day. Her mother had raised the kid so she could finish high school. When it all came out, her friends were all very supportive of her. A few years on and she's now become a nurse. It must have been really hard, though herself and her daughter both seem to be doing well now. Just makes me sad. XED prevents these sorts of situations. These kids didn't even know what was happening, sad face. Just makes me sad. XED prevents these sorts of situations. These kids didn't even know what was happening, sad face. Yes. My husband's parents are super religious and banned him from attending any of the XED classes growing up. Here we have them in 5th grade and 9th grade. As a teenager he stuck his dong in crazy and almost got her pregnant. I used to work with students at a construction college who were aged between 16-19. Shortly after a new intake, I overheard a couple of the new learners calling one of the others bank robber. I asked them all to stay behind to talk to them about appropriate names, ensure there wasn't any bullying going on, etc. The young man in question seemed extremely well mannered and had what I can only describe as a baby face with a cheeky grin. Turns out he actually had a criminal record of trying to hold up a bank with his dad using garden implements. I had no words. Must have been quite the hoedown. He probably wasn't the sharpest tool in the shed. Some male student was sharing peen at school. Once confronted, he said, "I just wanted to show them my sister." Parents confirmed that the actress was indeed his sister and that they were very proud of her success. I mean, probably not the best place to share, but hell, if they're proud of her. I heard about two 6th graders who were rumored to be involved in prostitution. A teacher later confirmed it as true, as both students were discovered dead, murdered while working as prostitutes. I don't remember the full story, but the teacher was heartbroken, because they were her students. I remember in 6th grade I shared a bus stop with a girl who told me she was a prostitute. I didn't believe her, but after that year I never saw her again, and I met her older sister a few years later and confirmed it all. Crazy stuff. They both were getting pimped out by their own mom. That's freaking horrible. It happens a lot more often than people realize. I work with a special needs kid in state custody right now. He's the product of incest and his mum pimped him out for drugs. Frick people. Not a teacher, but there was a rumor senior year that a girl was blowing her boyfriend in the parking lot before school every morning, and it became so prevalent that even the teachers knew about it. School administrators finally investigated it, and it turned out the girl really was blowing her boyfriend in the parking lot before school every morning. I did high school so wrong. This thread just filled with stories of people getting laid in their youths. Lucky motherfrikers. Best girlfriend ever. The breakfast of champions. One of my students came back to school in August with a dress and a sign saying she is trans. Coolio. No big deal. And then she left for 2 weeks. In America, if a student is gone for 2 weeks, there is going to be some form of talking to the parents. One of her friends told my coworkers and I to not bother, because her family moved to Sweden. We thought the kid was joking, but a quick check on Facebook showed that the family moved to Sweden and never told anyone. No one has heard of the family since. There are minor activity on Facebook to show that they are alive and breathing, but aunts, uncles, and grandparents have not heard from the family since. We don't know if the trans thing and the sudden move are connected. In America, if a student is gone for 2 weeks, there is going to be some form of talking to the parents. Wait, what am I missing? Does nobody bat an eye when a student doesn't show up to class? Over here, if a student doesn't show up to class and his parents haven't notified the school will immediately try to contact them. If unsuccessful, the school has to involve the local police, who will then start looking for the student. Not to punish him, her, but because something might have happened to them. Since the parents are trusting the school with the safety of their child, the school is legally obligated to treat it as a missing child. Edit. A lot of replies seem to confuse what the point behind this is. If you sent your daughter to spend the day with a friend, but she never shows up there, wouldn't you want said friend's parents to let you know immediately? I remember when I was sick once and my parents forgot to phone the school. They got a call about 10 in the morning asking where I was. I can't imagine not showing up for a week and the school just not caring. My cousins went to a school where the only day they'd call home about kids cutting class was 4:20, or if they'd missed several consecutive days. I went to a very uptight private school where every class period took attendance, and both called home and gave you detention if you missed a single class. I was baffled when I heard about my cousin's school. The amount of freedom was astounding. The culinary teacher who just had kids with her husband and the biology teacher were caught making out by a student during an event. It was confirmed by them soon after. I saw on Facebook recently that now they're married. Honestly, they look really happy. I heard they were in the closet making babies and I saw one of the babies and the baby looked at me. Rural Catholic school here. Unhealthy smattering of pedophile priests. Directly saw one inappropriately touching a friend who we found out later was being molested by another priest the next town over. Principal bounced to 4 different schools because he couldn't stop touching young girls. Young idiot ducks of everything returns to school post graduation to teach without qualifications and actually writes a note to 2 senior girls promising bogus grades for extra favors. Another 2 kids kicked out of school for having X on the pool table in the year 12 common room. I'm still friends with the girl on Facebook. Anyway, there was this priest who was riding the knife edge between humanity and psychosis. Saw him beat the absolute snot out of a kid who I hated so bad that I felt sorry for him. Heavy slaps to the face and then ran him into a metal post by the scruff of his neck. Anyway, to our relief he disappears one day, and so does the married head of year 10 English. Someone sees them years later 4,000 kilometers away. Apparently she divorced her husband and he'd left the priesthood and they were as happy as they could be.